There's another crisis, of course, facing the UK, and that's the migrant crisis. I'm going to bring in Tony Abbott now. He was Australian PM from 2013 to 15. Let me just give you a statistic here that sums up Abbott's approach to the migrant crisis in Australia. In the first year of his term of office in 2013, there were 20,000 migrants entering Australia illegally by boat. By the end of his term in 2015, there were 0 illegal migrant entries by boat. That's quite a statistic, Mr. Abbott. How on earth did you achieve it?
Well, we basically decided that the boats were going to stop, because boats coming at that rate and people entering our country illegally at that rate amounts to a peaceful invasion. And no sovereign country can tolerate its borders being violated by people who just get on boats, land on your shores, and basically, if you can get here, you can stay here. So we had to stop that. So we did a number of things. We reinstituted some Howard government's policies, temporary protection visas, offshore processing, and turning boats around where it was safe to do so. But we also brought in some initiatives of our own. We had a combined command under Operation Sovereign Borders, which ended the I suppose, dysfunction of different parts of government all doing different things and too many cooks spoiling the broth. We had a news blackout because announcing every single arrival was effectively shipping news for people smugglers. Most importantly, where the people smugglers scuttled their boats, we gave their passengers unsinkable boats and put them back on the water towards Indonesia from whence they'd come. So we had a very determined, very clear set of policies. I can't say they were popular policies. There were lots of claims that these would be against human rights. Some even said they were against international law. But we were absolutely determined to stop the people smuggling trade, to stop the deaths at sea, to keep our country secure and sovereign. And the only way you can do that is by keeping control of your borders.
Well, you talk about the lack of popularity of the policy there, Mr. Abbott. My understanding is that subsequent to you being in power, Labour then obviously took over, tried to reverse it initially, but now these measures remain in place and presumably there are now no migrant arrivals by boat in Australia. Is that still the case?
That is still the case. There was a brief flurry of activity where people smugglers tried to test the resolve of the new Labor government. But to its credit, thus far at least, the new Labor government has maintained the former coalition government's policies. But these policies were bitterly opposed by the Labor Party when we first put them forward. They were very heavily criticised from many, many different quarters while we were actually doing them. But once they worked, they suddenly became quite popular and were embraced by the Labor Party. In the end, this is one of those situations where success creates popularity, and because the policies succeeded, they were widely adopted, and I certainly think there's a lesson there and a potential model there for other countries, such as the United Kingdom, that have got a problem with illegal arrivals by boat.
What do you think has gone wrong with the UK's policy then, Mr. Abbott? I mean, you'll be aware of the legal challenges that have taken place. Do you think perhaps former Home Secretary Priti Patel was a bit short-sighted, that she didn't predict that this would be challenged in the courts?
Well, if you've got a problem with the activist lawyers bringing legal actions to try to frustrate the policy of the government, well, you've simply got to change the law. Now, my understanding is that there's no reason why the UK Parliament couldn't change the law to remove the jurisdiction of the European Court that prevented the removal of boat people to Rwanda. No reason why the law couldn't be changed, and certainly successive governments in Australia confronted with activist lawfare against the government's policy to keep our borders safe, we simply change the law, and that's what you've got to do where the law isn't working.